District Attorney of Middlesex County. Before providing a factual update, I want to make a few preliminary comments. First and foremost, Mikayla Miller, as many of you may have seen, was a beautiful child. She was a cherished daughter, a gifted student, a talented athlete, and a loyal friend. Mikayla's death is an unspeakable tragedy for her loved ones and for the entire community of Hopkinton. From the beginning of this investigation, our investigators have been fully committed to determining exactly how Mikayla's precious and promising life ended. Make no mistake, there is no truth to the allegation that we have reached a final conclusion. I will repeat that. There should be no mistake that any comments that we have reached conclusions in this case are false. Although we have learned and established some facts, which I will share with you shortly, the most important takeaway from today should be that no final conclusions have yet been reached. Let me also speak to the calls and questions that we have appropriately received from concerned citizens regarding the notion that this office has in some way neglected Mikayla's case, or worse, so much worse, is engaged in some sort of cover-up because Mikayla was black or because she was a member of the LGBTQIA community. That is patently false. Over the past few days, we have talked to members of the community. We know that everyone would like to have the answers as to what happened with Mikayla. We know it is difficult to wait for those answers. We have also been in close, almost daily communication with Mikayla's family's representative. We have to get to the answers, in this case as in every case, with due speed, but in a way that does not compromise the integrity of the investigation. A primary question as to what was the cause of Mikayla's death lies with, the answer to that question lies with the medical examiner. A ruling as to the manner and cause of death has not yet been received. At my direction, investigators have sent to the laboratory certain samples and items for appropriate forensic testing. No results have yet been received as to that testing. We do have some information that I will share. As I outline some of those facts, I want to remind everyone again, this is preliminary investigation. This case will not be closed until we have exhausted all avenues. As this case involves juveniles, there are also some limits as to the information we can provide. This information that we will be talking about today has been gathered as a result of interviewing dozens of witnesses, conducting forensic analysis of various electronic devices, phones and such, and a review of other available evidence, including surveillance video. I'd like to begin by providing a timeline of events beginning on Saturday, April 17th, continuing into Sunday, April 18th. We know that on Saturday, there was an encounter which led to a physical altercation at the club, what's referred to as a clubhouse or a common area of the apartment complex in which Mikayla lived. We know that that occurred sometime between 5:17 p.m. and 6:41 p.m. Based on cell phone data, text messages, and GPS data, We believe that at one point, Mikayla had been at that clubhouse recreational area with two friends. Those two friends left, and she was joined by 4 other teenagers. There was an additional female teenager who remained outside in a car. It's sometime between 5:17 and 6:41 that physical altercation occurred between Mikayla and 2 of the teenagers, 1 male and 1 female. We know that after the physical piece of that altercation, Mikayla and the 4 teenagers spent about 20 minutes together, continuing to be together in that clubhouse. At 7:20 on Saturday evening, the Hopkinton police were dispatched to Mikayla's home after her mother had called and reported to police that her daughter had been jumped. When interviewed by the police, Mikayla reported that during that physical altercation a short time before, she had been pushed and punched in the face. Officers noted that she had a mark of blood, some blood on her lip, consistent with what she told them. The investigation into that assault remains open, and there are no charges pending on that at this point. At 7:43 that evening, the Hopkinton police left Mikayla's house, and they went to the residence of one of the females who had been involved in the altercation and took a statement. They then returned to the apartment complex and observed some damage both inside and outside of the clubhouse, which they photographed. Mikayla at this point was still at home in her apartment with her mother. Some approximately 9:30 to 9:45 that evening, Mikayla's mother went to bed, believing that Mikayla was still in the apartment. Mikayla's cell phone had a health app on it. That phone indicated that between 9 and 10 p.m. on Saturday night, the phone traveled a distance of 1,316 steps. That distance of 1,316 steps is approximately the distance between Mikayla's home and the place where her body would subsequently be located. And it was at approximately 7:45 on Sunday morning, the 18th, that an individual jogging in the area of 34 West Main Street in Hopkinton located Mikayla in the woods off of a walking path and reached out to the police. When Mikayla was discovered, her phone was on her person, and her backpack and other belongings were close by. In the days since Mikayla's death, we have pursued, as I mentioned, an extensive investigation. We have confirmed the whereabouts of four teenagers who were inside the clubhouse in the altercation with Mikayla on that Saturday night. And to reach that conclusion of where they were and that they were not in the area of 34 West Main Street, we relied upon cell phone data and other digital evidence. Based on both witness statements and cell phone GPS, we know that the 2 females who were in the clubhouse earlier have a location confirmed overnight from 8:43 p.m. on Saturday to 5:48 a.m. on Sunday. The 2 males that were inside the clubhouse left Hopkinton with a family member after the altercation and the conversation in the clubhouse, the vehicle that they were traveling in passed through the Easy Pass on the Mass Pike eastbound at 8:08 p.m. and exited the Mass Pike at 8:58 p.m. in Charlton. The two males were also observed on a surveillance video inside a car buying and eating food at the Wendy's in Sturbridge at 9:06 p.m. As to the third female who remained outside, we have witness information indicating her whereabouts being at her residence that evening. Let me again emphasize one thing. Nothing about what I have said brings Mikayla back or consoles her family as they grieve. What we can do and what we really owe her is an accurate and fulsome accounting of what happened and what led to her death. You have my word, both as the district attorney and as a mother who cannot imagine the tragedy of losing a child, that I will deliver those answers. It is going to take us some time to get the results that we need to do that. But in accordance with that pledge that we will get to the answer from Mikayla, I want to make another promise. When this investigation concludes, I will, if appropriate with the permission of the family, release every shred of legally releasable information on our website for you to see and review. You have my word on that. I have long recognized that our obligation is twofold. It is to do a thorough and unbiased inquiry and to then make the results of that inquiry available so that the public has confidence in that inquiry. I assure you that both will be delivered in Mikayla's case. I'm happy to take a few questions.
Marian, can you talk a little bit about the nature in which Mikayla's body was found? Was she hanging or not?
The circumstances, as I mentioned, the manner and cause of death are things that we are awaiting a ruling from the medical examiner as to that.
It sounds like you believe she was in that park alone. Any evidence that she may have been murdered or someone else was there?
At this point, we do not have evidence that the people from earlier are in that area. We do not have any indication at this point. I want to stress that this is preliminary, that we are not finished. As to who else may have been in the woods or that area on Sunday, we do not have any information as to that at this point.
And do you have other evidence that she walked there, possibly from a video camera somewhere other than her health app on the phone?
No, and we don't know that we only know that between 9 and 10 o'clock she took 1,316 steps. Where that went or how that went, we don't know that. We do know that that distance is approximately the distance from her home on Revolutionary Way to where she was found.
And was her girlfriend among those teens who were at the clubhouse?
It's our understanding that one of the females there is someone with whom there was a relationship, yes.
Did you know if she was inside or that female was
She was inside. It's our understanding that that person was one of the females inside.
and had a physical altercation with her, or?
She was present inside the clubhouse, as it's being referred to. And just to be, I know there have been some questions as to whether this was a clubhouse in the nature of a boys and girls club or some kind of supervised. This is an apartment complex. There's a really lovely kind of common building area, pool table, seating. I believe particularly relevant, it had Wi-Fi in that building. So that's what we're speaking of. This is not a place where people were being supervised in some way.
You still have no reason to believe that Mikayla was murdered, despite what people in Hopkinton are saying right now. Can you say that?
We are not commenting on the cause or manner of death at this point. What I can tell you is the facts that we have so far.
Ryan, do we know how long it may take for the medical examiner's office
I do not.
to return the report?
I do not.
And do we know if Mikayla had any communication with any of those 4 teenagers close to that time period in which she took that 1,316 steps? We
believe that the last communication that Mikayla had, which was with someone other than the people, was with a female at approximately 9 o'clock.
And it was not any of those
Not,
individuals?
as far as we know, it was not any of those people who were there.
Is there any indication of bullying? In Massachusetts, there have been other cases where young kids have taken their lives that have been bullied. Is there any possibility, as you look at the forensics or these phones or text messages, that she was driven to kill herself?
That's not something we're prepared to address. Yeah,
Why?
but that's a continue. As you can imagine, forensic examination of anyone's cell phone these days, particularly of young people's, involves tens of thousands of pages, and we are making our way through an examination of the phones, computers, all of that.
And what do you say to people that this office was delaying their investigation since this happened a month ago and we're standing here today?
Well, it happened a little over 2 weeks ago, and I know some people may not have been aware of the investigation. That does not mean we were not investigating.
Why are there no charges about related to the altercation that occurred prior to her body?
As with any criminal charges, we will obviously have to make an assessment given the circumstances, obviously with Mikayla's death, as to whether we have sufficient evidence to go forward with anything.
Were those other teens white who were there in that clubhouse?
It is my understanding that there were a variety of races among
Any
those.
sense that race played into that altercation?
I have clearly heard that allegation. I think this office has a very strong record of being clear, of naming hate crimes, proceeding and charging appropriately in those cases. I do not have a reason, this is preliminarily, to believe that we do not have any evidence, either positive or negative, as to whether that is the case in this circumstance.
Is there anything else that you can say, D.A. Ryan, about the case that might appease, perhaps ameliorate a perception that this was indeed a racial bias incident? You have a rally being planned on Thursday where that, in fact, is part of the theme. Is there anything else that you can say that might address that perception?
I think that what is clear is that this office has a very strong record of examining every case through a lens of racial justice and racial equity, and making appropriate assessments and charging decisions in those cases. We are not at that point in this case.
Thank you.
There has been no final conclusion yet. Why did police tell Mikayla's family that it was a suicide? Why did the DA's office initially tell media that this was not suspicious?
Very often, as everyone knows, things may appear to be one thing and then we learn more information. I think that is why initially we always indicate this is at this time. Clearly, often things come to light as we proceed further in this case.
D.A. Ryan, you said you all have had consistent communication with the family's representation, but it seems like the family has some difficulties clearly with how things have taken place, and they've made several allegations. What do you attribute that disconnect to be from, if you all are having such consistent communication with them?
I think, and I expect it would be true of everybody in this room, if something happened to one of my children, I would go to the ends of the earth to get those answers. And I would have wanted the answers immediately. So I completely sympathize. I cannot say I understand, and I think we all hope we're never in a position where we have to understand losing a child and feeling that the answers are not coming quickly enough. I understand that you certainly would want to know immediately exactly what would have happened in your child's last moment. And it is a great disappointment always that we cannot immediately give families those answers. I completely understand that. And that all a family wants to hear is tell me why, tell me how, tell me what those last few minutes were like. So that is something I think that is a universal reaction. I don't expect that us saying we are awaiting a ruling from the medical examiner or we're waiting results from the lab gives much comfort to a family when they are waiting for answers.
Were there any objects found by Mikayla's body that were seen out of place? Because earlier today, her mother said that a belt was found around.
We are not, at this point, prepared to comment as to the situation or the circumstances surrounding that scene.
And we have one more
Is there a
question.
delay in the ME's report here? I mean, what and why?
It is always the case that the medical examiner's office is conducting testing. They're doing all that they do, whatever is appropriate under the circumstances for them to get to that. Many of you have obviously been on other cases where you know we wait some period of time for that result. There is absolutely nothing unusual or different in this case about the fact that we are waiting.
Just for clarification, I know it was considered not suspicious early on. Has that now changed? How would you characterize it?
We are committed to getting a complete and fulsome answer as to what happened to Mikayla. Thank you all. Thank you. Stay well.